Everybody come back. We got the system running. Log on in. Okay, to the mover of the motion.
Point of order, since we have an amendment to the amendment, does that, go ahead and if the second agrees, make a motion to rescind the amendment?
You don't have to make a motion. You just say, I withdraw my motion.
I withdraw my motion.
Perfect, thank you. And it's, the second was the mayor, but at this point, or who was the second? Who was it?
It was me.
Oh, Ms. Zalatel was the second. She agrees, so, and actually only the mover really needs to rescind. But, okay. Then, we will be seeing a funding document introduced at the meeting of December 5th. So for hearing on the 19th. Okay, next we have Zalatel Brawley Volland Amendment 13.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Zalatel, seconded by Mr. Volland. Ms. Zalatel.
Thank you. So I alluded to this amendment earlier. This moves the mobile crisis team out of the alcohol tax and into AFD's annual operations budget. 24/7 operations of fully staffed MCT should be paid for using 2023 surplus SEMT revenues, which we know exist. We are more than $5 million over what was budgeted for the year in SEMT collection. But more critically, what this does, it doesn't just change the fund source, it operationalizes mobile crisis team into the emergency services division detail of the fire department's budget. Because right now, the mobile crisis team, which I believe is a beloved service and a much needed one, is simply a budget line item that could go away if the line item wasn't funded. And so this really operationalizes that and puts the ball into the fire department's court to plan on utilizing SEMT funds in the future to sustain mobile crisis team funding. It says, I hope this sends a message that the mobile crisis team is here to stay, and the expectation is that it'll be at 24/7. Thank you.
So I have myself in the queue. Ms. Zalatel, this is a net zero amendment, right?
Correct. It moves it from, actually, it's a reduction to the alcohol tax of 2.447, and then it doesn't actually increase it or go towards the tax cap capacity because it uses the surplus SEMT funds.
Right, so just so folks understand, this is not an incremental increase over what was already budgeted. Okay, anyone else on the amendment? Hearing and seeing none, members may proceed to vote. On a vote of 11-0 and the youth member votes,
Yes.
that amendment has passed. So now we have, for the first set of alcohol tax program amendments drafted in such a way that we can allow Ms. Zalatel not to participate. Ms. Zalatel.
Thank you. Just really quick, it's my duty to disclose. So the next set of amendments involve emergency cold weather shelter, as well as issues, I believe, related to or concurrent with the homelessness services portion of the alcohol tax. And as such, being a grantee in that bucket of the alcohol tax, I ask to be excused.
Mr. Terrell?
Just to clarify, am I allowed to vote on items
Yes.
related to alcohol tax?
Yeah, so these are not licenses granting authorization to operate liquor or marijuana establishments. This is using the revenues generated from those establishments to fund services in the community, so I do not think there's a conflict. Yes, for Ms. Alatal, there's definitely a conflict. And the way that this item is set up, we have this amendment, which is Brawley-Rivera-Vollen Amendment 54, which is an omnibus of the next 3 pages in the packet from 41 to 43. So if number 1 passes, then we don't have to move the next 3. So the movers, Ms. Brawley, Mr. Rivera, Mr. Volland.
Move to approve Brawley-Rivera-Vollen Amendment number 54 ATAX.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Rivera, seconded by Ms. Brawley. Mr. Rivera. 41. Just one sec. Mr. Rivera, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this amendment funds emergency cold weather shelter through April at Covenant House and our other shelter locations. It also funds non-critical transport at emergency cold weather shelter for clients to go to their medical or service appointments so that they can move on in their housing or service journey. Overall, I think this is a good package that continues to fund our transitional age youth shelter at Covenant House and continues to fund our non-congregate and our congregate shelter. If we need additional funds beyond these, we will, I believe, be able to come back and make that appropriation if needed through FY23 unspent funds, or however you wanted to call it. But my hope is that with these additional 2.4, I believe it is, total $1 million, that this should meet the need for the remainder of our emergency cold weather shelter season. If not, I think there is a strong commitment that we will find the funds to meet that need. But my hope is that this will. Thank you.
Ms. Brawley.
Yeah, just briefly to add, we certainly don't take lightly the fact that there's many people still sleeping outside. We have been able to take quick action and have well over 500 beds available for folks that we know are being utilized, and we know that we can be doing better, that we need a real plan to meet our emergency shelter needs as well as housing people as quickly as possible. So just to say, this is continuing the commitment that we've made this year to continue the contracts, as Mr. Rivera said, through April. I also want to acknowledge that we are proposing using additional alcohol tax funding, fund balance specifically for addressing our shelter needs, but I think at least my intent long-term is to find ways to operationalize this in our main budget, because it is something that the municipality has had emergency cold weather shelter in our code for a long time, and we have not ever put really consistent funding toward it. So again, this is really recognizing the reality of where we are now, and also that we need to do better moving forward, but this is the plan for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bronga.
I wasn't sure on the transportation, the non-critical transportation, what the time frame on that is. It says one time. So is this intended to be until April, or can anyone answer that question for me?
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Rivera.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yes, this is funding from January through the end of emergency cold weather shelter, so end of April, for folks who might need that non-critical transportation. So we did this in the Sullivan Arena when we extended the Sullivan Arena a month from April to May-ish. And I think that was very successful for folks who needed that transportation. There was actually a story in the paper about someone who did need that kind of transportation to move them on in their journey, and they didn't have access to it. So I do think that this funding...
So the other thought I had is anchor rides won't fulfill this need?
So this funding is envisioned, whether that is People Mover, Anchor Rides, or other third-party transportation services. But if it is Anchor Rides, we would still need to fund it, or if it's People Mover, we would still need to fund it.
Right, any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing, hearing none, members may proceed to vote.
Mr. Myers, how do you vote?
No.
Mr. Johnson, how do you vote? How do you vote?
Yes.
So on a vote of 9-1 and the youth member votes,
Yes.
yes, the omnibus amendment has been adopted. Okay, so we'll keep going, see if it continues. So that means we can skip pages 41, 42, and 43, and I believe then we have, alcohol tax, Rivera, Vaughn, Bronga, 26. Go ahead, Mr. Rivera.
Move to
Oh,
approve.
hold on, before we do that, I'd like to ask for a motion to extend by 20 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Vaughn, seconded by Mr. Rivera. Any objection? Hearing and seeing none. The debate has been extended an additional 20 minutes for this item. We're almost through the amendment process now, Mr. Rivera.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I move Rivera, Volland, Bronga Amendment Number 26A tax.
Second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Rivera, seconded by Mr. Volland. Mr. Rivera.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is another one of those big, ambitious amendments. I think we can all agree on this unacceptable, that we must have a plan to do better, and this amendment is one big step in that direction. I've said this multiple times, and I believe it 100%. There is room, and I think more than that, I think there is a need in our system for some type of allowed camp structure. This amendment provides funding to allow the Anchorage Health Department to plan and execute 2 to 3 allowed camps that fall in line with the great work of the Allowed Camp Community Task Force, which had members of the public and experts alike working together to help meet this
just hit these. You gotta hit 2 guys, Tev, right here.
Yeah, but I'm playing the hit many guys, so to hit only 2 guys is better.
I can only.
Tax one's 2.
I would move to extend 15 minutes.
Second.
Mr. Johnson has made a motion to extend 15. Mr. Rivera seconded. Any objection? Any really meaningful objection? Because I want to object. No, okay, hearing no objection, we're extended another 15 minutes. Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, thanks. I'll keep it quick, and I promise I think this will be the only time I speak on this. And I would have liked to have continued to ask Ms. Johnson some questions, but I would also like to just make it clear that I was not intending this to be an attack. I appreciate the hard work she's put into this. I know is often a thankless task. She almost came back in the room. And really, you know, if we could come up with well, Ms. Johnson, are you willing to? Yeah, I guess what I was saying is, you know, I mean my question to ask genuinely, right? And it's not meant to be an attack on you or the efforts you've made to try and address this very challenging issue. And I guess maybe to reframe it slightly, if we can come up with an alternative that says, hey, look, we found a plan whereby we do not anticipate hundreds of people camping on our streets, then I would love to support that. I would love to take that up instead of what we're looking at here. But I'm just not convinced that that's where we're going to be come the summer. And if the reality is that we are going to have people, hundreds of people camping on our streets, I want to take steps to mitigate the harms both to the people in the camps and the community with that. And I feel like this amendment is a step in that direction. Now, again, if you can come up with a better plan whereby we are not going to find ourselves in this situation again, flat-footed going into May, like, wow, suddenly there's 500 people out here. What do we do? I'm open to that, but I put that challenge to you, and if there's a better alternative that actually realistically can fix this problem, great. But until then, I think we need to plan for this contingency.
Through the chair to Mr. Johnson, I think that when we're speaking on things, vocabulary is very important. $2 million towards mitigation is one thing. Setting up a sanctioned camp where we know who is in the camp, who is not allowed in the camp, in a space which by resolution we know is Midtown Old Archive site. There's a lot of challenges that we face. If we want to start preparing for mitigation efforts at Cuddy Park for next year, that's one thing. But now to ask the administration to come in, we would have to abate that area that's currently habitated to set up a sanctioned camp. It would have to be fenced, gated. It would have to have an operator, somebody who knows who's coming and going, bathrooms, and then you have, let's say, 50 to 100 people there because you would want a smaller site. Where does that leave the remaining 800 unsheltered people living in Chauncey, living at 3rd and Ingra, still living at Davis? What I think we envision in the long term is that this is going to solve our problems that we saw heavily this summer. And the reality is it's not. So if we have a limited pool of funding and we have to focus that funding somewhere else, this is the worst possible way to use this funding, in my humble opinion.
I'll say finally, I think we're getting into a lot of kind of details there about what was the operational plan going to look like, where, scale, things like that. I don't think that's all covered here, nor do I think this is really the time and place to hash that out. So I think, again, if this passes, I think that we should have a robust conversation about how best do we actually implement this and what is achievable. And I personally, I hope it's something a little bit more than what you laid out there, but I think that's a conversation for another day.
So, I had someone else in the queue, but he's put himself out. Last one, Mr. Rivera.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So everyone here has been on the record, has said that they want to fund a roof and a key, some version of that, right? So rather than force a vote that's going to fail, because I can read the tea leaves, I have another opportunity that was presented at the Housing and Homelessness Committee last week through the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness. And I'm going to put that opportunity before you and hope that you will put your money where your mouth is. And that opportunity, the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness presented a plan to house 150 people by April 30th, 2024, and they had about a $2.4 million funding gap in that plan as they presented to us last week. So, since we all have said, fund a roof and a key, I am going to go ahead and change this amendment up. So I probably will, we'll see. I don't know if I want to do this as an amendment or just bring a new amendment to the floor. Whichever is easiest, bring that forward to bring this as a direct grant through the real estate department to the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness to fund their housing surge pilot program. That is going to be the amendment that I intend to bring forward. So, Mr. Chair, would you like me to just do that as a floor amendment, or would you like a new amendment?
I think practically speaking, it would be a challenge to go from the form that exists with markups verbally on the floor to make the change. And so I think that the best answer would be coming up with a fresh amendment on the floor as swiftly as possible.
Okay, I can do that. Thank you.
Okay, so then this amendment, the mover was Mr. Rivera, Mr. Vaughn. What's the intent for this amendment?
I'm okay just withdrawing the amendment.
Okay, thank you. Then next, we're going to move to, actually, when do you think this can be done?
I'm pretty fast, so maybe give me like less than 10.
So the next amendments include a member of the coalition, and so we'll just have to ask that person to leave when we get back to that item again. So, okay, I guess we'll move on now to Zalatel-Brawley amendment. We'd have to ask Ms. Zalatel to come back. Next, we have Zalatel-Brawley Amendment Number 55. It's page 45.
And I'll move to approve Zalatel-Brawley Amendment Number 55.
Moved by Ms. Brawley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Zalatel. Ms. Brawley.
Yeah, thank you. So just briefly, the projects in this omnibus amendment for alcohol tax funding are each important investments in addressing and preventing harms of community issues named in the ballot proposition that was approved by voters in 2020 to enact an alcohol tax, and which this funding is dedicated to. So just as a reminder, that's public safety and first responders, preventing child abuse, domestic violence, and sexual assault, and addressing homelessness and mental health crises. We've always recognized that the community need is larger than this revenue fund can fully address, but we've worked to balance the investments and prioritize prevention in these amendments. And as we learn over the coming months about the status of our finances from FY22 and upcoming close of FY23, we can also have additional conversations about where to make future investments.
Thank you. Ms. Zalatil.
Thank you. I wanted to call out on the Anchorage Safety Center or Community Patrol. This is a starting point on what this contract increase is likely to look like in the new year, but I think it's enough to make folks comfortable for getting the RFP out, and likely in first quarter or in the spring, we will need to bring forward an additional appropriation to meet what those contractual requirements are. Additionally, really want to highlight the increase to the behavioral health bucket. I think this is an important, complementary opportunity to address kind of what's been a little bit of a donut hole in our community. So we have the mobile crisis team, and that's fantastic, but there's these ongoing chronic behavioral health needs that just aren't necessarily getting addressed. And this puts funding toward the behavioral health, I guess, sub-bucket that we created last year, and raises that to $330,000, gives us a chance to pilot some mobile case management. And I think this will be a great complement to some of the other investments made under the alcohol tax. My hope is the portion that's not amended here, which is that big prevention bucket, gets on the street as soon as possible this upcoming year. Because while we look at this as an omnibus amendment, we need to remember what isn't being amended and is just carrying over. And prevention is a big part of this alcohol tax. And those dollars, if they're not out there, we don't get to see the impact. Thank you.
Mr. Cross.
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate that, Ms. Zalatil. And my question actually is regarding line 5, which is Anchorage Safety Center Community Patrol. So they're an organization that exists, right? And they existed in 2020 when the alcohol tax passed. My understanding, the alcohol tax thing, by the way, on what you can fund and can't fund, I've always been a little confused, that they could only fund new things and things they didn't do before. Can you help me understand what they're doing new or different underneath that would allow us to use that money?
Sure. So it's additional capacity and services. So when the RFP goes out, we're fully anticipating that the way in which we're asking the safety center to run will look very different, and we'll add new and changed services, because that's what the health department is piloting now. So they've gone to an EMT model, whereas before it was a security-based model. And so it is a fundamental change in the type of service from 2019.
Okay, I think that answers my, thank you.
So Ms. Brawley has already spoken. I'll put myself in the queue first and just speak similarly to what Ms. Zalatil just said. And I actually had a revenue question for them. At what point do they become a Medicaid billable service? And especially when they're delivering services as an EMS model. And I think it's really laudable that they're doing this shift, because we have many years of experience in the security model where it's just never proven the results that we need. But it does raise the question, at some point we need to look closely, and I want to talk with the police about this, creating a parallel system that is a security approach. It's just a different function and for different methods. And that's for a different day. But having met with the new provider that's just come on in emergency capacity and hearing how they're shifting, it is a completely transformed program, which I'm really grateful for. Mr. Vollen and then Ms. Brawley.
I had Anna first. Oh.
She already
Oh, okay, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I did want to talk a little bit more about the behavioral health bucket. And if folks look at the longer form of the standalone, this is one thing we pointed out in the work session where currently there was $230,000 in the budget proposal, but those were meant to be one-time expenses, not recurring. They were kind of for discrete projects. And so essentially what we're doing here is we're adding $100,000 to that $230,000 for a total of $330,000 for this mobile case management and kind of like on-site mental health care. And I just want to point that out. I think it's really important because it is responsive to our complex behavioral health needs community task force. And one of their recommendations, and we voted to accept the report, I think one of their strongest recommendations was to kind of meet people where they're at and provide that ongoing health care. So yeah, hope you will support this. Thank you.
Now, Ms. Brawley.
Thank you. So this was good timing to have the others speak first. First, I just wanted to also respond to Mr. Cross and point out, for example, camp abatement or our Healthy Spaces program. Prior to 2020, that was funded as a summer-only program, and it was in our general fund in the Parks Department budget. The alcohol tax provides additional funding for camp abatement outside of those summer months, and so that's an example of some of the nuance that can come with level of service, for example, that falls there. On the behavioral health one, I had a question for the sponsors. So looking back at the budget as it is currently written in the alcohol tax, I understand that there was an error put forward in the administration's budget listing those as recurring grants and not one time. But I also see in the amendment, the amendment essentially as it's written seems to add that 100,000, but it does not specifically delete the direct grants from what's in there currently. I understand the intent is to essentially replace what's in there with this in totality, but I also understand the value that, for example, VOA is bringing with their mental health services, and just that alcohol tax can fill some of the gaps that other grants with more constraints have. So I would like to move an amendment to the amendment that would essentially delete the direct grant to Recover Alaska for 2024, delete the, I believe it was the suicide prevention pilot program in 2024, and then reduce the VOA grant to 50,000, and then therefore the remaining 280,000 would be available for this pilot project of mobile outreach.
Clerk needs you to repeat that. If you have it in writing, it's best.
Okay, I can send it in writing, but essentially it's deleting the direct grant that is to Recover Alaska for 2024, and this is not in the amendment itself, it's in the original budget. Perhaps it's best if I just do it in writing. So yeah, it's deleting the 100,000 direct grant to Recover Alaska, deleting the 30,000 suicide prevention grant for 2024, reducing the amount of the VOA grant from 100,000 to 50,000, and then adding a new line that is essentially mobile case management at the total of 280,000. So it doesn't increase or decrease the total that's proposed in the amendment, it just reallocates some of the funding.
Under bucket number 1. So that was a motion. Is there a second? So I am not hearing a second, and what I think we're seeing here is the risk of amendments on the floor after weeks of briefing on amendments. Probably a good idea, but it's hard for people to wrap their mind around it. So that motion dies for lack of second. Ms. Zalato.
Thank you. I believe there's still considerable alcohol tax fund balance available. So, and not everything has to happen tonight in this meeting. So I would encourage possibly taking another look at that VOA opportunity because we hadn't heard any request, or I hadn't, from VOA to continue that funding when we had intended it to be one time. Thank you.
Okay, so we're back on the motion to amend, and that's, yeah, on the amendment. So, any further discussion on this amendment? Hearing seeing none, members may proceed to vote. On a vote of 10-1 and the youth member votes
Yes.
yes, that amendment has passed. So I believe that takes us to conforming amendments. Ms. Zalato.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the conforming amendment number 1.
So I think that's, you have it. There's a motion to amend the conforming amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
So it's moved by Ms. Zalatil, seconded by Ms. Brawley. Ms. Zalatil.
Thank you. So the conforming amendment directs the Office of Management Budget in consultation with the clerk's office or designee to make conforming changes reasonably necessary to implement the approved amendments of the ordinance, which is the budget, and any attached memoranda or exhibits. We will see one of these for a couple of the budgets. This just lets the cleanup work be done, because if we've amended an amendment and something didn't get quite right, it allows those corrections to be made. What it does not include is making corrections to clerical or technical errors in the documents, such as numbering, formatting, or other manifest clerical errors. Those errors can be corrected by the reviser of ordinances per code. Thank you.
Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, members may proceed to vote.
I think we had it.
I'm hearing questions on the amendment.
If they're not copies, here, take a second and pass it out.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
All right, members may proceed to vote. The queue is up. On a vote of 11-0 and the youth member votes
Yes.
yes, the conforming amendment has passed. Mr. Rivera. Yeah. Ms. Zalatil,
Thank
you're
you.
excused again.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So before I speak to the amendment, which is being printed right now, just briefly, had meant to say something. Let me just pull up my notes. Right, because I know that there are a lot of service providers who are probably listening right now on this conversation. Folks understand that the budget partially funds the unified funding proposal. There where you can see it in the alcohol tax, where it reverses some one-times in the unified funding proposal, which is essentially a cut to that proposal. So I'm going to be coming back in April during our first quarter, or perhaps sooner than that if we can figure out the numbers. But at least in April during first quarter, and put forward an amendment to finish funding the unified funding proposal as a recurring idea that will be brought forward, so that we don't have to keep funding it and reverse and fund it again and reverse and fund it, so that it's a permanent fixture of our alcohol tax as a fully funded proposal to meet our really basic needs, as build up that basic safety net, which the municipality really should. So please look forward to that in April, service providers. I know a lot of you are nervous about that funding, and trust that I will guide through that process.
Mr. Rivera, before we move again, I would like to ask for one last motion to extend by 15 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Volin, seconded by Mr. Rivera. Regretfully, I'm going to ask, is there any objections? I'm not hearing or seeing any overt objections, so we are extended 15 more minutes. Mr. Rivera.
Thank you. All right, so everyone should have a copy of the amendment, which I alluded to earlier, so I'm going to go ahead and move Rivera, Volland, Braga amendment number 57.
Second.
So the amendment was just handed out to you. The motion to amend was made by Mr. Rivera, seconded by Mr. Volland. Mr. Rivera.
Thank you. So as I said earlier, the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness presented last week at the Housing and Homelessness Committee meeting a pilot project that they are starting with resources that they already have. And in total, what they're hoping to do for this pilot project is to assist with the transition out of emergency cold weather shelter by housing and leasing up 150 individuals by April 30th of 2024. And they have a budget gap of about $2.4 million to get that work done. Right now, if they don't meet that budget gap, then they're going to house only 75 individuals. So as folks have said, right, they really want to focus on investing in housing, and I think this is one quick and easy way that we can make that investment to an organization that has a track record of getting this work done. So I encourage folks to support this amendment, and just as a quick aside, we're going to have to at some point come back to the other discussion that we were having around allowed camps. That discussion will not be over because this, although great, is not going to meet the need in our community. This is going to move the needle in a big way, but it is not going to meet the need. We're going to have to do something for this summer, and I've already talked y'all's ears off about the committee spearheading the way to do that, so look forward to future discussions on that. Thank you.
So we have approximately 10 minutes left, and I'm going to make on behalf of Ms. Zalatal a declaration that we found previously and find again that since this item addresses matters of her employment, she has a conflict. Is there any objection to that finding? No. Okay, thank you very much. So again, we are running out of time for this debate. We have a bunch of other items to pass, and I have a bunch of people in the queue. Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, I guess I appreciate the intent here, but this does feel like more information would be helpful before I felt comfortable supporting this. I mean, for example, we say up to 150 individuals. Where are these housing units? And then for what time period are their leases going to be covered if we appropriate this $2 million? And what is our confidence that we'll actually be able to achieve finding space for all 150?
Sure. Mr. Presverdia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to respond to this, but add something in addition. So I won't be supporting this amendment. I think that the real concern I have is a little bit broader, and that is that this isn't our job. Our job, this is the administration's job. The administration's job is to come up with plans and to come to us for resources. And I realize that we're in a position right now where we've been dealing with administration that has not been doing the work, and so the Assembly has had to step in, and that's the reality that we've been in for quite some time. But the idea that we are going to continue to lead the effort to try to come up with solutions and plans for dealing with homelessness is just continuing to concern me, and so I'd rather continue to make sure that we have something in place, or there's something that we know what it is before we fund it. So my concern here is that there's no plan, there's no details, there's no clarity, and that should be coming from the administration. I'm continuously concerned that we have 12 mini mayors that are trying to run the city, and I understand why. And I don't blame any of us for doing the work that we're doing, because this is the situation we're in. But these kinds of actions, I think, continue to perpetuate that idea. So I would rather put the onus back on the administration to say, what is your plan for the coming year, and what do you need in terms of resources and policy? So unfortunately, I won't be supporting this, and I'd like to see that as we move into the next fiscal year, that the administration changes course and begins to actually lead these efforts. Thank you.
Mr. Rivera. All right. Mr. Martinez, how much time do we have left on the debate? Okay, 10 minutes. Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Chair. My first question to the sponsors is, why not make this 2.4 to make it a whole to fill the gap in the first place? And if that can be done in that way, why not have an amendment that actually fills the whole gap and doesn't leave $400,000 gap to what was requested as the gap? So if that could be done, I'll consider that. But I would only take a small degree of exception with the idea of leading the effort. I don't think, with respect to the budget and our appropriation, we establish the values and we work with community partners. So I actually don't see this as putting money into the hands of the administration to hope that they do something with it. I see this as on par with the way we utilize resources with the Anchorage Community and Affordable Housing Trust to do something that was, without a lot of details, but it was 30 units. And so this has the same degree of of detail with respect to me, but this is about us getting money out of the municipality into the hands of an operator that we already know, we already trust, and it's in par with what we have taken actions on before. So my only question is, can we make this whole?
Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, Mr. Rivera referenced 75 people. This represents, or individuals rather, this references 150. I'm just wondering how much money we've spent over the past 3 years and if we have enough money to get through the rest of this winter. I don't know, I don't see Ms. Johnson in here any longer. But how many people are we funding with this total?
Okay, Mr. Volland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I did want to reiterate Member Martinez's points, sort of in response to Member Perez-Verdia. This is sort of like what we did when we were doing the ARPA funds, and we were having sort of an impasse with the administration with some implementation. And so instead, we, my recollection is we appropriated, I want to say it was 12 million to Rasmussen Foundation, which then morphed into, a conglomerate of community partners, and then out of that was born the Anchorage Affordable Housing and Land Trust, and we've seen their good work and what they've been able to do with hotel conversions and opening up those units. This is also based on a presentation that we heard from the coalition at the most recent Committee on Housing and Homelessness. And so they gave us sort of a breakdown of what their need would be. And their financial model was an all-in cost for housing 150 individuals, assuming no subsidies or outside contributions. But the money may even be able to go further if folks are able to access things like housing vouchers, for instance. So, yeah, again, I think this is worthy of support. And to Member Martinez's point, I think potentially could be more efficiently spent in the community. Thank you.
Mr. Rivera.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I get that this is a new amendment. I get that some people probably didn't attend the Housing and Homelessness Committee and maybe didn't watch the recording of the Housing and Homelessness Committee, so you don't understand or are not fully caught up with the pilot project as was presented by the coalition. Here's what I will say. This is our opportunity to make progress. There was a question about how many people are we funding with this total. It's 150 people. Without this funding, the coalition will only be able to have funding to house 75 people. With regard to the funding gap, the 2 million versus the 2.4 million, the coalition is looking at other funders actively. So I don't necessarily think that we need to come in at the full 2.4 million level. We have that. We reduced 2.4 out of alcohol tax with moving MCT out of it. So we could, in theory, do it. But frankly, I like to go with the idea of the municipality should be one of many, leveraging our funds. And hopefully this $2 million will help the coalition to leverage funds to get the additional $400,000. How is the coalition finding units? So they will be actively working with the United Way's housing landlord partnership to actively find units. And I don't have all of the details in my back pocket, but I was quite impressed with the coalition's presentation and their very aggressive attitude that they had to finding units that are, right now being underutilized in our community and turning them on and doing whatever they can to get over the hurdles that landlords may have. And United Way has a really good track record of doing that. So I think with all of the different partnerships, I am confident that this pilot project will work, will meet some of the need, and I think right now, honestly, that's what we need to focus on, is doing everything that we can to take one more bite out of that apple. Thank you.
Ms. Brawley.
Yeah, thank you. Just briefly wanted to share, I was consulting with our budget analyst just to the question of whether we have room in the Alcohol tax fund balance, of course, we're not going to know that answer completely because we don't know what that fund balance is. However, we believe that at this time there would be, that this could accommodate it. So I just want to state that.
Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, I guess I'm sorry. Had I anticipated this, I would have gone and reviewed that presentation, and it sounds like it's an idea that has some merit, but just without more information, I don't feel like I can support it at this point, especially since, as I'm doing my rough math here, the 2.4 million is to get us from 75 to 150 individuals. I don't know if we're talking about rental assistance or procuring a building or what, but just kind of cocktail napkin, this is $32,000 per individual that we're hoping to house here, which I would hope that this would be a very long-term permanent solution if that's how we're spending the money. And I'm sure there are answers to these questions, but without the time to dive into that today, I just don't feel like I can support this.
Anyone else? Oh, Mr. President, is your queue not working?
Yeah, my computer's not working, thank you. So I appreciate the feedback, and I think that what I'm trying to understand is why are we doing this right now? What is why are we doing this at last minute, coming up with something that happened just a week ago and trying to push this in right now? We have the ability to give resources to projects that we feel are important at a variety of times. And so I'm wondering why we wouldn't bring this proposal forward in some form and be able to have a conversation with the coalition. And I mean, that's what I'm trying to figure out. We went from trying to fund sanctioned, what am I calling it? It's the
Allowed camps.
Allowed camps, thank you very much. And because it didn't feel like that vote was going to happen, we came up with another idea. And so I'm trying to figure out what is the rush? Why are we doing this right now? And I don't think I understand that. I also, like Mr. Johnson, feel like that this may be a good project, and I certainly am a fan of the coalition. So. Yeah, but I just don't feel like I have enough information right now to really make this decision, and I'm confused as to why we're spending so much time trying to get this in at this moment. So maybe someone can answer that for me. Thank you.
Mr. Volland.
Sure, yeah, so from my perspective, the urgency is that we don't even have the capacity for emergency winter shelter that we're supposed to have right now. And I'm looking to the future to see, okay, well, what are the things that this is budget, it's budget night. It's time to make our budget amendments. And so looking to the future of when emergency winter shelter is going to go offline in April, what are the things? Okay, if it's not allowed camping, what are the other, I guess, mitigations, or what direction does the body want to go in as we prepare and we set a budget for the city and we utilize the resources that we have in an expeditious manner? And so I think that's why there's an impetus to do this.
So time has expired for this debate, for the whole item. I am not going to vote to extend anymore. I'll ask the members now, is there a motion to extend debate? Okay, and that is for the entire item. So members may proceed to vote. On the amendment. On a vote of 5-5, the amendment has failed, and the youth member votes.
Yes.
Yes. Now, Ms. Zalatel, please come back in. So time has expired for this item. The main motion is now before us as amended. Question is, shall we approve this budget?
I'm assuming we're having computer problems. Mr. Myers? Oh, sorry, okay.
Members may proceed to vote. On a vote of 9-2, the budget has passed. Next, we have item 13C, AO 2023-96, ordinance adopting the 2024 general government capital improvement budget. Public hearing on this item is open. Anyone wish to be heard? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none, public hearing on this item is now closed. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Zalatel, seconded by Mr. Presverdia. We have a number of amendments. This is page 52. Is there a motion?
Yes, move amendment number 49.
Moved by Mr. Volland,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Zalatel. Any discussion?
Sure, yep, this is all of the Parks and Rec projects that were brought forward for the Parks and Rec bond. Worked on this with Member Bronga and really appreciate her collaboration. And one thing I will highlight is that we were able to compromise on an amount to try to prioritize some improvements to Davis Park following their master plan and safety enhancements in multiple Mountain View neighborhood parks, and really just want to positively activate Davis Park especially, and Parks and Rec does have a short list of projects identified by that master plan that are shovel ready. So anyway, I hope my colleagues will support these. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing, hearing none. Is there any objection to the amendment? Ms. Brawley.
I just wanted to say briefly, thank you to the two members who worked on bringing this forward, and I also appreciate the focus on parks in East Anchorage, because I know that has been a point of contention for the last couple of years in the capital budget, and so I really appreciate that that you have brought forward increased funding for those projects to ensure that they get done. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Seeing, hearing none, members may proceed to vote on the amendment. On a vote of 11-0 on the youth member votes,
Yes.
yes, that amendment has passed. Next up, we have Volin Amendment number 35.
Yes, move Volin Amendment number 35.
Moved by Member Volland. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Zalatel, Vice Chair Zalatel. Mr. Volland?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so this is for pedestrian wayfinding downtown, and I'm sorry that you all did not receive this letter more expeditiously, but this is a project that there's a lot of alignment with several of our organizations, Visit Anchorage, AEDC, the Chamber of Commerce, Anchorage Downtown Partnership. It's also a priority of the Anchorage Parks Foundation, and they've worked on some preliminary designs, identified, in a number of our plans, the 2021 Our Downtown Plan, 2019 AMATS Non-Motorized Plan, 2023 Anchorage Task Force recommendations that were made to Mayor Bronson, the Choose Anchorage Plan. So I see this as sort of a catalyst, putting this on the roads bond, that we can kind of get this momentum going forward. And I think with all these organizations wanting to participate, and the four that signed this letter, they made a commitment, say we are committed to supporting the implementation of this project. So anyway, again, hope my colleagues will support this. Thank you.
Seeing no one else in the queue, members, is there any objection to this amendment? Okay, Ms. Salatil is asking for a vote, so members may proceed to vote. On a vote of 11-0 and the youth member votes,
Yes.
that amendment has passed. Next, we have Brawley-Bronga Amendment Number 37,
Move to approve amendment number 37.
Second.
moved by Ms. Brawley, second by Mr. Walland. Ms. Brawley?
Yeah, thank you. We're bringing this amendment forward at the request of the Anchorage Park Foundation and Parks and Recreation Department. The Anchorage Cemetery requires specialized and smaller maintenance equipment to be able to maneuver the grounds, to maintain, which of course is important for families and those visiting their loved ones at the cemetery. So this simply moves half of the proposed FY 2025 funding into 2024 to allow the department to replace a broken piece of equipment, and then leaves the remainder of the proposed funding for the original year that it was put forward in. Thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing and seeing none, members may proceed to vote on the amendment. On a vote of 11-0 and the youth member votes
Yes.
yes, that amendment has passed. Next amendment is Bronga Amendment Number 39,
Move to approve?
moved by Ms. Bronga,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Salatil. Ms. Bronga?
I brought this project forward at the request of Anchorage Parks Foundation. I am not a ball player myself, but the Chester Creek Complex is a much beloved complex. Lots of people use it. It needs ADA upgrades, and pretty much every year there needs to be improvements to fencing and electrical upgrades, and it's especially been hit hard with the housing crisis and the people camping in the area. And so we want to address needs for this complex through this amendment.
Mr. Krause?
Forgive me, didn't we partially fund this last year, even some ARPA grants that went through Pete Peterson?
Yeah, there was a $40,000 fund for a set of the bleachers that had fallen apart, I think.
Okay, so this is just more work on the same project?
So I have a similar question, put myself in the queue. So this says Chester Creek Complex Facility, but did you mean Mulcahy Stadium? So I think maybe we should amend the amendment so it's very specific and says Mulcahy Stadium. Otherwise, this could be in the Sullivan Arena, in the Bokie, it could be in anywhere on that whole campus. But if we narrow it down to Mulcahy, I think it gets to what you were talking about.
I would accept that amendment.
So basically, you would have to move to amend where it says Chester Creek Complex, Mulcahy Stadium.
Okay, I move to amend Chester Creek Complex to Mulcahy Stadium Facility Safety and ADA upgrades.
Second.
So move to amend the amendment by Ms. Bronga, seconded by Ms. Zalatel. Anyone wish to discuss that? Hearing and seeing none, members may proceed to vote. The amendment to the amendment. Vote is 11-0. The youth member votes
Yes.
yes. Now the amended amendment is before us. Any discussion? Good to go? No, members may proceed to vote. This is on the amendment as amended. On a vote of 10-1 and the youth member votes
Yes.
yes, that amendment has passed. I think there's one, is this a different item? Oh, that's the next item, okay. Okay, so next, the conforming amendment is Salatil. I think that that's for the next item.
Yeah, I move a conforming amendment for item 13C.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Zalatel, seconded by Mr. Volland. Any discussion on the conforming amendment? Hearing and seeing none, members may proceed to vote. On a vote of 11-0, and the youth member votes
Yes.
yes. The amendment, the conforming amendment has passed. Now we have AO 2023-96 as amended before us. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, members may proceed to vote. On a vote of 11-0, and the youth member votes
Yes.
yes, AO 2023-96 as amended has passed the body. Next, we have item 13D, AR 2023-324, a resolution adopting the 2024-2029 General Government Capital Improvement Budget. The public hearing on this item is now open. Anyone wish to be heard? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, public hearing on this item is now closed. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Salatel, seconded by Ms. Brawley. There's an amendment, which is the final amendment in the package. It's
I promise it won't take as long as my others, Mr. Chair.
Rivera, I didn't want to say that name. Don't say that name. Rivera, Salatel, Braga, Amendment 44.
Thank you. I move Rivera Zalatel Bronga Amendment number 44.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Rivera, seconded by Ms. Salatel. Any discussion, Mr. Rivera?
Yes, briefly. This amendment moves up funding for the Midtown Park warming facility from 2029 to 2025. This project is going to be ready for construction well before 2029. So to avoid delaying the project and possibly making it more expensive, we're proposing moving it up to 2025 when it will be ready for construction. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing and seeing none, members may proceed to vote on the amendment. On a vote of 10-1, and the youth member votes
Yes.
yes. AO. Okay, the amendment is passed. Now we have the main motion before us. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, members may proceed to vote. Yeah, it's de minimis. Thank you. On a vote of 11-0, and the youth member votes the youth member votes
Yes. Sorry.
yes. AR 2023-324 as amended has passed the body. It's fine. It was de minimis. Next, we have item 13E, AO 2023-97, an ordinance adopting and appropriating funds for the 2024 Municipal Utilities Enterprise Activities operating budgets and the 2024 Municipal Utilities Enterprise Activities Capital Improvement Budgets. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anyone wish to be heard on this item? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, public hearing on this item is now closed. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Moved by Ms. Salatel.
Second.
Second by Member Volland. I believe there's an amendment on this one. Nope. Go ahead, Ms. Salatel.
Thank you. I was just being asked if there was an amendment. I don't believe there's an amendment on this one. There is an intent to see where we're at in first quarter and possibly reverse the reductions, particularly to the port. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing and seeing none, members may proceed to vote. On a vote of 11 to 0 and the youth member votes
Yes.
yes, AO 2023-97 has passed the body. Next, we move to item 11A. 11A is AR 2023-326, a resolution approving the 2024 to 2029 Municipal Utilities Enterprise Activities Capital Improvement Program. No motion is pending. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Zalatel, seconded by Ms. Brawley. Ms. Zalatel.
Let's pass it.
I think, doesn't, good enough. Thank you. Members may proceed to vote. On a vote of 11 to 0 and the youth member votes
Yes.
yes, AR 2023-326 has passed the body. Next, we have AR 2023, no, 11B, AR 2023-325, a resolution adopting the 2024 to 2029 six-year fiscal program. No motion pending. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Moved by Ms. Zalato.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Brawley. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, members may proceed to vote. On a vote of 11 to 0 and the youth member votes
Yes.
yes, AR 2023-325 has passed the body. C, AO 2023-98, an ordinance adopting and appropriating funds for 2024 operating capital budgets of Anchorage Community Development Authority. No motion pending. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve the S.
Second.
Was the one laid on the table.
Moved by Ms. Zalatel, seconded by Ms. Brawley, the S version. Ms. Zalatel.
Thank you. Just briefly, the S version removes the parking meter replacements and puts that money towards facility system and infrastructure replacement. As you all probably remember, we already took care of the parking meter issue. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, members may proceed to vote. On a vote of 11 to 0 and the youth member votes
Yes.
yes, AO 2023-98 has passed the body. So that concludes the budget process. Except for the administrative processes, the mayor will have 7 days to make line item or other vetoes, and then the assembly would have 21 days thereafter to complete its actions. I think that I would like to offer the budget co-chairs a couple of minutes of privilege to speak about the budget now, since there wasn't an opportunity before. Ms. Zalatel.
Thank you. Thank you for the privilege, Mr. Chair. I wanted to first thank my colleagues for caring a lot about our city and bringing forward a lot of really thoughtful amendments that seem to lead to a lot of debate. But that's the kind of energy we want in this city. And I wasn't privy to the debate, but we also had a lot of other conversations, and we really stuck to our priorities. So I'm really thrilled to see that. I think that we have set a course to hopefully be in a better position next year with room to make calculated adjustments in the new year as we need them. The general operating budget we have just passed is under the tax cap, and I think that's important for two reasons. One is it gives us some nimbleness to deal with snow and anything unexpected in that category. And two, as we engage on this adventure in figuring out how to retain and attract more workforce, it gives us some room to look for what tools may be possible. Similarly, with regard to the alcohol tax, there's still considerable fund balance and room in that tax. So I ask us all to think carefully about how we want to move forward. What we didn't do with the alcohol tax that we did with general government that I would do different is to possibly call out priorities specifically for the alcohol tax next year, like we did for general government. They're the dedications, but within those dedications, I think there's a lot of room for debate, and trying to get that alignment earlier might be helpful. So want to thank you all, thank the administration for its support of several of the amendments moving forward and for being creative problem solvers with us, particularly around the PAC elevator. Thank you.
Ms. Brawley.
Yeah, I'll echo what my Budget and Finance co-chair said. I'll also note, and similar to what she just said, this is really an important point in our process, but we work year-round, and so we have multiple points in the year that we address the budget formally, and then, as has been stated during debate multiple times, there are other opportunities to look at those investments. So again, just invite my colleagues to continue to do that. I also want to note on the alcohol tax, similarly to the process to determine where, or to make recommendations where the marijuana tax should be put forward in terms of early education. There is also an effort underway to create a strategic plan for the alcohol tax, which also will have is intended to have a public engagement component to really think thoughtfully about how we can make those investments, and then also how to operationalize those investments in terms of recommendations. So again, looking forward to having that by mid-year next year, and then as Member Zalatel said, we certainly want to put those priorities forward and think intentionally over the next few years where those should go. So again, thank you to all my colleagues for this important work.
And just so you know, all this book was made by our legislative staff, our finance staff, and also I want to thank the OMB team that did the first draft and made a heavy lift on that part. And with that, our budget process has concluded until we take care of the next administrative steps. So our next items are quasi-judicial, so thank you to the youth member who actually made a substantial amendment proposal that was adopted. You put that in your journal and tell your teacher about that, because it was a significant achievement. And with that, we'll move on to item 15A through G, essentially our must-pass items. And then once we get through those, there's a little bit less pressure. 12A, I think the petitioner would like us to pass it. Everything else we can make our way through. So next up, we have item 15A. 15A is Resolution AR 2023-381, resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly stating its conditional protest regarding the transfer of ownership and transfer of location of package store license number 757 for Three Bears Alaska Inc. DBA Bears Den Liquor. If someone would waive reading.
Waive reading.
Thank you. The public hearing on this item is now open. Anyone wish to be heard? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, public hearing on this item is now closed. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Brawley. Who's the second? Mr. Myers. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, members may proceed to vote. Ms. Zalatil is now excused. On a vote of 10-0, AR 2023-381 has passed the body. Next. Shit. Right. The clock in the back of the room is wrong, if anyone's wondering. Whew. About had me a heart attack. So next we have item 15B, AR 2023-382, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly stating its conditional protest regarding package store liquor license number 757 for DAWG Inc. DBA Liquor Locker.
Waive reading.
Thank you. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anyone wish to be heard? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, public hearing on this item is now closed. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Brawley, seconded by Mr. Myers. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, members may proceed to vote. On a vote of 10-0, AR 2023-382 has passed the body. Next, we have item 15C, AR 2023-383, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly stating its conditional protest regarding the renewal of brewery license number 5321 for Alpenglow Brewery LLC DBA Alpenglow Brewery.
Waive reading.
Thank you. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anyone wish to be heard on this item? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, public hearing on this item is now closed. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Second. Moved by Ms. Brawley, second by Mr. Myers. Oh, was it Mr. Rivera? I don't know. Okay, I thought it was Mr. Myers. So, anyone want to talk? Anyone? No? I'm sorry, I'm getting tired. Okay, members may proceed to vote. Hearing none. On a vote of 10 to 0, AR 2023-383 has passed the body. Next, we have item 15D, AR 2023-384, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly stating its conditional protest regarding the transfer of ownership of beverage dispensary license number 1666 with restaurant designation permit of Pink Cadillac LLC, DBA Pink Cadillac.
Waive reading.
Thank you. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anyone wish to be heard? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none, public hearing on this item is now closed. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Brawley, seconded by this time Mr. Rivera. You gotta be louder, Mr. Myers. The clerk says, hold on one sec, so yeah, Rivera. Okay, members may proceed to vote. On a vote of 10 to 0, AR 2023-384 has passed the body. Next, we have item 15E, AR 2023-385, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly stating its conditional protest regarding the transfer of ownership of beverage dispensary license number 4350 with restaurant designation permit for Coyote Santo LLC, DBA Coyote Santo Restaurant and Lounge.
Waive reading.
Thank you. The public hearing on this item is now open. Anyone wish to be heard? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none, public hearing on this item is now closed. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Myers moves and Mr. Wallen seconds. Anyone wish to discuss the matter? Hearing, seeing none, members may proceed to vote.
Mr. Meyer, oh,
On a vote of 10 to 0, AR 2023-385 has passed the body. Next, we
Mr.
have-
Chair, I'm on the phone.
Oh, awesome, Ms. Alatel. Would you like to be recorded on that previous vote?
I vote yes.
Okay, so next we have item 15F, AR 2023-386, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly stating its conditional protest regarding the new restaurant eating place license number 6154 with restaurant designation permit for the Beardsley Group LLC, DBA Alaska Chopped and Chowdered.
Waive reading.
Thank you. Public hearing on this item is now open. All right, come on down. Welcome. Please state your name and what part of town you're from. You'll have 3 minutes, and the microphone is off. Yeah, turn the button. Yep, the green button. There you go.
Hi, my name is Brian Witzke. I go by Bree, she, and her pronouns. I have traveled by the Chopped and Chowdered location over there on Spenard. I really do hope and encourage everybody to make sure we show, not so much the assembly, but as the public, that we show support for the lower part of Spenard. Ever since COVID, it has taken a serious beating, and I do hope and pray that this place does well. It looks like it's going to be interesting. I'm excited. So I do appreciate the assembly taking the time to hold its business to approve this. But again, moving forward, we need to, as a community, continue to embrace our different parts of town, all the way from Fairview to all the way down to Spenard. Spenard is definitely part of my home. I'm currently residing at the Alex at the current moment, which is in Spenard. And that area is in much need of the support that we can give it. So I'm really excited to see this, and I hope that everybody takes time out of their normal eating habits to check out something new. I think they'll do well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, public hearing on this item is now closed. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Brawley, seconded by Mr. Myers. Anyone, any discussion? Seeing, hearing none, members may proceed to vote.
Ms. Salatel,
Yes.
On a vote of 11 to 0, AR 2023-386 has passed the body. Next, we have item 15G. 15G is AR 2023-397, resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly approving a marijuana license and special land use permit for Bloom LLC, a marijuana manufacturing facility with license number M32685, doing business as Aurora Bloom.
Waive reading.
Thanks. The public hearing on this item is now open. Anyone wish to be heard? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none, public hearing is now closed. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Brawley, seconded by Mr. Myers. Anyone wish to be heard? Anyone wish to discuss the matter? Hearing seeing none, members may proceed to vote.
Ms. Zalatel?
Yes.
On a vote of 11 to 0, AR 2023-397 has passed the body. Now we're back to 11D. So 11D is Assembly Memorandum AM 832-2023, AWU Board of Directors, James McCollum appointment. No motion is pending. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Brawley, seconded by Mr. Volland. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, members may proceed to vote.
Ms. Zalatel?
Yes.
Thank you. On a vote of 11 to 0, AM 832-2023 has passed the body. Next, we have Assembly Memorandum AM 833-2023, AWU Board of Directors, Danny Soreko. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Brawley, seconded by Mr. Volland. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, members may proceed to vote.
Ms. Zalatel?
Yes.
On a vote of 11 to 0, AM 833-2023 has passed the body. Next, we have item 11F, AM 861-2023, Planning and Zoning Commission, Jeff Round. No motion pending. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Volland, seconded by Mr. Myers. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, members may proceed to vote.
Ms. Zalatel?
Yes.
On a vote of 11 to 0, AM 861-2023 has passed the body. Next, we have item 11G, AM 862-2023, Planning and Zoning Commission, Jared Gardner. There's no motion pending. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Volland, seconded by Mr. Myers. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, members may proceed to vote.
Ms. Zalatel?
Yes.
On a vote of 11 to 0, AM 862-2023 has passed the body. Next, we have item 11H, AM 863-2023, Planning and Zoning Commission, Scott Polis. There's no motion pending. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Volland, seconded by Ms. Brawley. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, members may proceed to vote.
Ms. Zalatel?
Yes.
On a vote of 11 to 0, AM 863-2023 has passed the body. So the next item, I understand there is supposed to be an A version. Is, Mr. Byrd, is there an A version for the Animal Control Advisory Board?
Mr. Chair, is this Mr. Eben?
It is.
Okay. My understanding is that the previous meeting, we had submitted an A version. If it's not in this packet, then we'll need to confer with Mr. Whitney.
Okay, so would it be, I would like to move to postpone to the next meeting on this one, since I don't know that we have the item. Okay, that would ask for a motion.
Second.
Postpone.
So moved.
Yeah, Mr. Vaughn moves.
Second.
Mr. Rivera seconds to postpone to the meeting of December 5th. Any objection, or I guess members may proceed to vote.
Ms. Zalatel on the motion to postpone to December 5th.
Yes.
On a vote of 11 to 0, AM 860-2023 will be back before us at our next meeting. Item 12A, AR 2023-365, resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly approving an alcohol special land use permit for recreational site use and license number 6164 for Michael McCormick, DBA Frosted Axe Throwing.
Waive reading.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Action was postponed. I don't believe there's any motion pending.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Rivera, seconded by Mr. Myers. Any discussion? Hearing seen none, members may proceed to vote.
Ms. Zalatel?
Yes.
On a vote of 11 to 0, AR 2023-365 has passed the body. Next, we have item 13A. I believe the intent of this item is to postpone it for another meeting. So AO 2023-10, or continue the public hearing, I should say. AO 2023-107, ordinance the Anchorage Municipal Assembly amending Anchorage Municipal Code, Section 25.30.020 to include agreements transferring operational control over municipal property in the category of disposals of an interest in municipal land. But since you're here, I didn't know you'd be here, Ms. Zalatel. Maybe we don't intend to continue. Ms. Zalatel.
As soon as you open the public hearing, it's my intention to continue it to the 5th.
Okay, so the public hearing on this item is now open. Ms. Zalatel.
Thank you. I move to continue the public hearing to December 5th.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Zalatel, seconded by Mr. Rivera. The motion is to continue the public hearing to December 5th. Any discussion? Seeing, hearing none, members may proceed to vote.
Ms. Zalatel?
Yes.
On a vote of 11 to 0, AO 2023-107, public hearing has been continued to the meeting of December 5th. Next, we have AO 2020, item 14A, AO 2023, 13F. Skipping over it. AO 2023-92, an ordinance amending Anchorage Municipal Code, subsection 21.40.30B, B1A, local and neighborhood business district to
Waive reading.
provide flexibility for more floor area to commercial businesses. Thank you. For this one, public hearing was continued from 9/26, so the public hearing is open. Anyone wish to be heard? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, public hearing is now closed. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Rivera, seconded by Mr. Volland. Mr. Rivera?
Thank you. I'm wondering if Ms. Zalatel might want to speak to this item.
Ms. Zalatel?
Sure. So this item was brought forward to us actually from former building official Ron Thompson, where he identified some difficulties in, when a business wanted to expand its area in B1A. We worked in conjunction with the Planning Department to come up with this ordinance. It was referred to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I don't believe that they have weighed in, but it is really just a minor change, and it affects a very small number of businesses. Really what it does is it relies on their prior plans and operations, and really places some discretion within the Planning Department. And just want to thank Dave Whitfield in the Planning Department for having drafted this up for us. Thanks.
Go ahead. So anyone else? Ms. Brawley?
Yeah, just another opportunity to make our code easier to use, so I support this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Sorry for that interruption. Anyone else? Hearing and seeing none, members may proceed to vote.
Ms. Zalatel?
Yes.
On a vote of 11 to 0, AO 2023-92 has passed the body. Now we have item 14A, 14A is AO 2023-108, an ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly amending Anchorage Municipal Code Title 7 to include procedures specific to certain construction contracts generally known as construction manager general contractor procurement.
Waive reading.
Thank you, Ms. Bradley. The public hearing on this item is now open. Anyone wish to be heard? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, public hearing on this item is now closed. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Moved by Ms. Brawley.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Wallner.
Second.
So, Ms. Zalatel, you want to take the lead on this?
Sure. So as we discussed at the work session, this really brings our code into alignment with the construction manager general contractor procurement process. It creates alignment. We understand that the CMGC process is one that's used in private industry and is often used for large projects, but it didn't really work with our procurement code. We have heard from purchasing department as well as from a few contractors, but we don't think that the way this is structured really creates any significant delays. And what it does put back into the process is that public hearing opportunity before we spend a large amount of money, the opportunity for the public to weigh in on what's about to happen. And that is really something that doesn't work with CMGC right now under the current code, because that initial contract is often one that falls in that space where a public hearing isn't required. So I would request your support. Thank you.
Ms. Brawley.
Thank you. I'd like to move Brawley Amendment Number 1.
Second for purposes of a discussion.
So a motion to amend, I don't know if I have it. Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion to amend by Ms. Brawley, seconded by, who was it? Mr. Rivera. Okay. Ms. Brawley.
Thank you. This is a small amendment that actually addresses not the main topic of the ordinance, but the language regarding assembly approval of contracts. So I understand the intent to require that contracts awarded through competitive procedures that are less than $150,000 need to be reported to the assembly in a timely manner. The language says, and no later than a month after award. During the work session, I heard a little bit of heartburn about the ability to meet that deadline given our public notice deadlines and so on. And so this is offered simply to remove any barriers to completing this requirement by extending it to up to 60 days rather than 30 days. And the idea being that it does still need to be reported in a timely manner, but that if that 30 days is a hardship in terms of our meeting deadlines, then this would give ample time. Thank you.
On the amendment, Mr. Cross? No. So I'll put myself in the queue briefly. I am not a fan. I'm not going to strenuously object because I understand the intent. 45 days would be more on point. What we've seen is 6 months, 8 months, reports get to us finally. 60 days seems to me a lot still. A lot can happen in 60 days. A number of small contracts can be awarded in at that time. You know, I don't know. But so I understand the spirit of it, and I won't strenuously object, but I won't be supporting it. Mr. Rivera.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually had that same thought cross through my mind of what about 45 days as a in between the 30 and then the 60 as a little bit of a compromise, because I do agree, you know, a big part of this is us getting this before the process goes too far along. And I think we've learned sometimes when the process gets too far along, it's too late for us to step in. So I think 45 days, if Ms. Brawley would agree, I think that's a good compromise.
Ms. Brawley.
Yeah, thank you. I was just entering the queue to say yes, I would be happy to change that amendment from 60 days to 45 days.
You just bought a vote. A good choice. Okay, on the amendment. Anyone else? Hearing and seeing none, members may proceed to vote. When the clerk's ready.
So this is amending the amendment.
Yes.
Who's second?
Well, it's changing, it's not amending the amendments. The mover and the seconder agree that it's, instead of 60, it's 45. So the main payment is 45.
Ms. Salatel on the amendment, which is 45 days, not 60.
Yes.
So on a vote 11-0, the amendment has passed. Next, Mr. Cross.
Thank you. Yeah, just speaking to the main motion, I understand why this was brought forward, at least from the conversations, from the perspective, but I think that when we do this, there's unintended consequences to when we change the procedure that we currently have. So I just wanted to ask the administration through Kent Colhays, if the administration has talked, I see our purchasing director isn't here, probably just at the late hour, but if you've had a chance, if the municipal manager and the purchasing director of the departments had a chance to discuss this, and what are the potential unintended consequences of implementing this? How do you anticipate this will affect your job? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. You're referring to the main ordinance, not the amendment, though. Just it has the potential to cause some delays with construction projects, especially if we're in a project where time is of the essence as we're completing the design component of any project, whether it's a design bid build or a design build or CMGC or CMAR. Sometimes time is of the essence, and the requirement to bring an intermediate contract back to the assembly for a public hearing, which I presume would be 2 meetings, adds 2+ weeks to that time frame. So there is a potential for adverse impacts, I would say. I would offer that we face the same thing. We face similar delays in the spring when we're trying to get projects out to bid that are design bid build, and we're waiting on the results of the bond and the assembly appropriation, approval of the election, and all of that. Just adds delays, and depending on the timing, that can sometimes add to an extra year of construction. That's not what we're talking about here, but there is a potential for delays on the order of, I would guess, 2 to 3 weeks in starting construction, depending on the timing. Thank you.
If I may ask a follow-up question, sure. Would you anticipate any unintended consequences to the contractors who are providing work?
Through the chair to Mr. Cross, I would say if a bidder or a contractor knew about the requirements of this ordinance in advance, they should be able to plan around it.
Ms. Alatel. Are you there, Ms. Alatel?
Oh, thank you. So the only thing I wanted to point out is these aren't usually low dollar contracts, and they're usually not ones that are, really moving apace. They're ones that have been planned out, and so I think Mr. Colhays' last comment that if contractors are aware of this moving forward, that this time can be built into the overall plan and process. So I don't anticipate considerable complications. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I don't see anyone else, thank you. And I'll just add, should true unforeseen consequences arise that are systemic, then any given Tuesday, an ordinance can be brought back to fix those issues. So that is one of the beauties of this job, is if we find it a problem, we can fix a problem. Seeing and hearing no one else, members may proceed to vote.
Ms. Salatel?
Yes.
On a vote of 9-2, AO 2023-108 as amended has passed the body. Next, we have item 14B, AO 2023-119, an ordinance authorizing the retention of tax foreclosed properties for public purposes and disposal for less than fair market value to Anchorage Community Development Authority. The public hearing on this item is now open. Anyone wish to be heard? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none, public hearing on this item is now closed. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Zalatel, seconded by Mr. Rivera. Ms. Zalatel.
Thank you. I'd like to move Zalatel Amendment Number 2.
Second.
An amendment was moved by Ms. Zalatel, seconded by Mr. Rivera. Ms. Zalatel.
Thank you. This amendment places in effect what is a deed restriction to ensure that this parcel, as it moves to ACDA, is disposed of for a public purpose. That public purpose is specifically for workforce and attainable rental housing, which restricts the occupancy for 5 years to residents with an annual median income of no more than 120%. So what this does is allows maximum flexibility. It could be low-income housing if it can pencil that way, but it goes up to that workforce level. And it, I think, is necessary in disposing of it in this manner versus on the open market to ensure that that public purpose is met, because no one else got the opportunity to bid on this parcel. Thank you.
Ms. Brawley.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate this amendment being brought forward, and I understand the importance of ensuring that we're putting property to public purpose. I did have a question for council. So I see there's a deed restriction, and I know those can be problematic if they are permanent on property in terms of flexibility, but this one is for 5 years. So I guess my general question to council is there any concern or conflict with other codes in terms of putting this type of deed restriction on this property?
Ms. Brawley, no, not that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Next, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the spirit of this amendment, but seeing as we seem to have Mike Robbins from ACDA in the audience, I was wondering if he'd be willing to speak to what he believes the impact of this amendment would be, if it would present any obstacles to their plans here.
Oh, it's on. There you go. Through the chair to Mr. Johnson. We actually worked with members Alatel on this amendment and feel like this fits the purpose of the property and the acquisition, the neighborhood. So we feel pretty good that this will allow us to use this property to its highest and best use. So we support it.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, I'd be happy to support it as well then.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, because I have a great respect for the board and what you do, and I would typically just trust your judgment and think that you would do what was in the best interest of Anchorage as a whole. So my initial response would have been to be against both the amendment and this AO, but since you helped craft it and you participated, then I will support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Seeing and hearing none, members may proceed to vote on the amendment.
Ms. Zalatel?
Yes.
On a vote of 11-0, the amendment has passed. Now we have the main motion before us. Anyone wish to discuss? Seeing and hearing none, members may proceed to vote.
Ms. Zalatel?
Yes.
On a vote of 11-0, AO 2023-119 as amended has passed the body, which, small miracles, concludes our regular agenda. Next, we have audience participation. Welcome. Please state your name and what part of town you're from. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Grandmaster Jedi Artificer Anakin Skywalker, Bustamante, San Claro. I recently Space Odyssey fast forward in the future 58 years. 103 days ago, Emperor Palpatine finally blew up, spontaneously combusted Electabuzz Pokemon at 672 years. Hi, I'm Vasquez McAllen, General Commander Specialist, Egyptian Royal Navy, Squadron 127, Fort Walton Beach. It's come to our attention, the Alaska boundary, DS-9, Levitating City, has drifted astray from a battalion deployed by unknown entities of stormtroopers of grandeur of nearly 803,000 vanquished in a clean sweep and atomic fusion implemented cover and casing of glacial chasm 94 miles out of DS-9, Levitating City, City of Bronze, allocated in this perennial parametric sterility. Hi, I'm Joseph Nakoma Brooks of Doyon, Alaska Native Regional Corporation. It's come to our attention, many of the utilities are down in Anchorage, Alaska, in this town around. There seems to be large pockets of biopetroleum, caustic black tar in all the underground canals. We've allocated with some of our shareholders and our other alliances in network discovery of 3 underground rivers attached to a glacial chasm drifting to town of Anchorage. Also, my bank said there was government closures. I could see how the government could close down if there's black tar oil everywhere, where they wouldn't want the government to be getting drunk on gasoline in slums everywhere that just manifested out of thin air. I ain't got really much else to talk about. I got to head back home. Hot water's out. If the gasoline gets in the line, you don't want to be heating gasoline in utility lines. I don't even have roustabout training with Doyon guys. Thank you. Good evening, Alaska, and all the cosmic refugees, and all the space invaders of the previous 103 days. Amen.
Thank you. Welcome. Please state your name, what part of town you're from. We'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Brian Witzke. I go by Bree, she and her pronouns. Going on 14 years, trans female. I am from the Alex at the current moment. I wanted to step up tonight. I know you guys never know what's coming out of my mouth next. I'm proud of that. But I want to say it is coming up Thanksgiving this weekend. We have many activities out there as far as it goes for those that are less fortunate. I can't say thank you enough except for take a moment while we have the public stage here. We have something on the 23rd going on at the Hope Center between 2 and 3. 12 p.m. Lunch will not be available that day. We got Mountain View Shell giving out free food November 23rd, 12 to 5. We have Beans Cafe November 23rd, going from 11:30 to 1:30. We have a Frontline Mission, Thanksgiving Day, 11 to 2. We have Anchorage Gospel. Services at 2 p.m., followed by dinner served between 3 and 5:30. We also have MCA Church, which is where I'll be at, between 11 and 4, the 23rd, which is located up on DeBar in Patterson, right next to the Walmart up there. I take a moment to shine to all these guys that are putting out some sort of food for those that are less fortunate. I bring it to the city and I bring it to the assembly and all the work as well as the administration over there. Take a moment, turn to each other and remember that we are all thankful that you guys are here. We're thankful for the work that you guys do. And if you guys can just, empty out one pocket and fill it up with all this wonderful joy that's coming from the holiday season and carry it through the next year, I know we would all appreciate it. That is bottom line. Even administration, as much as he's glaring at me right now, I appreciate you, man. Bronson, I know it's a difficult job, the assembly. I know you guys have a difficult job. If you guys happen to have any extra food, I'm sure many of these events would take any dishes you guys want to donate, as well as I'm sure that all of them would love to see any one of y'all's faces. I encourage you guys to continue to do what you guys do. Find ways to constructively have an argument one way or the other that may make a difference for us in Anchorage. I know that everybody has had a trying year, and I'm sure that we will continue to have trying years, but as we move forward, we're moving forward together, and that's what we have to remember when it comes to it, and that is what I'm thankful for. That in many ways and many lights, we are repeating of yesterday, but with fresh thoughts and fresh ideas to come up with a solution together. I'm thankful for Anchorage, for without it, I wouldn't have a home, and I want to say thank you to you all. Have a good night.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none. Next, we'll move to audience member comments. We'll start with Mr. Presverdia.
No comments, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brawley.
Just have a safe and restful holiday weekend.
Mr. Bolland.
No comments, thank you.
Mr. Cross.
This was extremely helpful this year.
Yep.
Great love and appreciation for who drafted it. Thank you.
Agreed. Mr. Johnson.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Ms. Bronga.
I wanted to take a moment to thank Ms. Camacho for all the help with budget amendments. That was very nice of her.
Mr. Rivera.
Yeah, I want to echo the thanks to Ms. Camacho and to OMB for all your help during the budget. It's a group effort. I do have a little bit of a comment. As always, I really appreciate this group. We are a thoughtful, driven, energetic group. Sometimes I get frustrated with y'all and the other branch, but you can always count on me to keep trying to move the ball forward with every ounce of energy that I have. I will never stop bringing forward ambitious plans for this group to debate and vote on. I think that we are in a stance that we are going to have to act often between now and April 30th. I'm going to ask the body to be prepared for a heavy lift and to make some tough choices, because otherwise we are going to be in the exact same situation on May 1. We have some work to do. Otherwise, happy Thanksgiving, and I hope everyone, sheltered or unsheltered, has a place to go, stay warm, and have a good meal this week. Thank you.
Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Chair. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone, and I wanted to shout out all of the volunteers who in our community who participated in Thanksgiving Blessing yesterday. And last week, in terms of preparation, I had a chance to be out at St. Patrick's Parish on Muldoon, and they served over 1,500 meals. And so I wanted to shout out the TRIO program and the high school students that came out to volunteer there, and also the folks from Credit Union 1 who also came out and volunteered, and particularly the food bank. I want to thank the food bank for their leadership on bringing our community together to make sure that those who don't have all the resources to have a Thanksgiving meal do have those meals, and to continue to support the food bank all year long. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to just thank everybody on this body who worked on, this was my first budget season, if you will, to get through, and it was complicated, but I appreciate the support, the insight, and Ms. Camacho especially. Have a safe, happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, everybody. So for my part, lots to reflect on for tonight and the last several months. I think it's a solid budget. I think there's a lot of good work in it, and I commend everybody for their work getting us to a concluded project in a timely manner so we don't have to meet into the next month to get this work done. Tonight was the first time I've had to wield the gavel as a chair in a manner to bring order. And I think that actually speaks buckets to the quality of the people, because I've been chair almost a year. And so that's actually fine. It's normal in a parliamentary body that you go through those processes. And I think the measure of the body is that we get back to work tomorrow, and we're still, we have camaraderie, and we are brotherly, sisterly in getting this very important work for our city done. And so, we're not there yet, but we know we're going to get there. Every day is a new challenge. So thank you to everybody. Thank you to our community, and hopefully you have a good Thanksgiving. And with that, a motion to adjourn is in order.
Move to adjourn.